Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of thecinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film, and this year's podcast media partner for the dCFF 2024 Film Festival. I'm Caleb Masters, your host, and today we're talking with the director and the producer of one of this year's Oklahoma feature films, in fact, the very first one opening this year's festival, Hailey's Game. So today we'll kick things off by talking with the Hailey's Game writer, director, and the producer about the film's inspirations, including maybe a little bit more about the original web series. We'll also cover the experience of making the film here in Oklahoma with the cast and crew, and then we'll close out the show by learning a little bit more about how you can watch the film at this year's festival. Now, before we get into this exclusive dCenter conversation, wanted to note that if you're listening via your podcast player and you enjoy us, please support us by subscribing and leaving us a rating and a review. And frankly, we have daily episodes of dCenter interviews coming out right now. So if you want to have those sent directly to your listening ears throughout the festival and after the festival, make sure to subscribe. You'll be one of the first to listen. But enough with that. Let's talk a little bit more about the film, Hailey's Game.
It's a delicate balance to the universe. Life and death, the in-between. You can have none without the other.
Got a ghost problem?
Hailey was my best friend.
Why are you trying to talk to Hailey, Carter?
So according to the description from the dCenter website, Hailey's Game is described as, when Carter McDowell lost her best friend in a car accident their senior year of high school, she never expected that 5 years later she'd still be haunted by visions of Hailey. Desperate to get closure, Carter recruits a zany bookstore clerk named Billy and Hailey's old boyfriend Tanner to conduct a seance, always a good thing, that will allow her to say goodbye. But when unexpected complications arise, Carter and Tanner will have to face the demons they've been running from since high school. Based on the popular web series Hailey's Game, this film will remind you of what it feels like to fall in love for the very first time. Man, that description really takes me on a roller coaster of emotions. Let's welcome today's guest. First up, we have the film's writer and director, and I believe this is the feature directorial debut for Katie Hightower. Katie, welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here. So excited. Thank you.
And congratulations on the film being in the festival.
Oh, thank you so much. It is It's an incredible honor to have our first film do this.
Well, I'm also very excited to be joined by the film's executive producer, Michael Johnson. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us. Also, if it makes you feel any better, I know it's a little bit biased, but I also believe the movie is really good.
I mean, I believe you. I believe the movie's great. I believe that you believe the movie's great. And with that said, let's talk about the movie Hailey's Game. So, Hailey, we were just talking before recording about some of what got you into filmmaking. So I have to ask the question, this is your first feature film. So what made this the right story for you to tell in your debut?
I mean, we've made a lot of content already, right? Like we've made several web series, we've made a couple seasons of those, and we did a practice feature that we made back in 2021, and it felt like the right time. Michael and I were talking and we were saying, oh, well, we're ready to see what we learned from making that first feature. Like we're ready to get into it and start this second one. And Hailey's Game didn't even start out as a feature. I just started writing the second season of the web series thinking oh, well, we'll go and we'll shoot it. We'll have fun with our friends and we'll put it on the internet. It'll be great. And as I started to write it and as I started to really process and to dig into the characters, I was like, this feels different. I felt more passionate about the story and I felt more passionate about what we were doing. And so I would bring him the edits and I was like, what do you think? Do you like this? And he would tell me, he was like, no, this is really good. This is really good. And so it naturally sort of evolved from being a web series. We had our first table read and we were all just feels like a feature. And so we sort of kicked it into high gear and we took a big leap. And I think it kind of paid off.
Katie, tell me a little bit more. I'm not familiar with the web series myself. Is this a follow-up? Is it similar? Is it a reimagining? Tell me a little more about the connection.
So think about the web series. You can watch the movie and it can be standalone and it doesn't need to be explained. But if you've seen the web series, there's going to be a lot of little love letters in the movie that you can see and say, oh, they're talking about that moment. It was the summer of, was it 2021? I feel like it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So summer of 2021, we had just finished making our first 2 seasons of You, Me, and Goodbye. We were sort of just not doing anything, and we were, again, addicted to film, right? Like, we were like, we need to do film more. And so my writing partner at the time, she and I went outside, and we were hanging out at night in my driveway doing nothing bad at all. And we were just sitting there. And we were talking about story ideas, and I was like, I really want to tell a story that deals with secrets, that deals with people who keep secrets. And so from there, we sort of developed this idea of Hailey's Game, right? Like, we have a group of friends who meets every year to celebrate their friend on her birthday, and they play the game that she loved to play, which is a game called Dare Me. And as they like go through it, like, they have to do their dares, and like a little bit of that is like lifted from like things that I've done like as an idiot and as a child. And it was really interesting to create that web series because we brought everyone in and everyone knew, like, this is a no budget. Like, we have one night to do this. It was a 28-page script that we shot in 12 hours. It was an incredible sprint. And that web series was directed by my writing partner, Mia McGlynn, and she did a great job. Like, and it was fun and it was good. But there was a moment when we went into post-production and I was like, there's more of a story to tell here. Like, Carter, like, we had an ensemble for that web series. And I was like, this story is about Carter. I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones. I want to tell Carter's story. I want to make sure that like Carter feels better. Like, Carter needs to stop feeling so much grief because like of all of the group that meets to talk about Hailey, like, Carter is still suffering and you can see it. And that was where the idea sort of came about, is because at the very last frame of that web series is Carter seeing Hailey in her backseat. And I was like, what if she sees Hailey everywhere, but she can never touch her, and she's always gone, and she's always just out of reach? Like, how crazy would that drive someone? And so that is where the story came from. And I started writing from that perspective, thinking, I want to make sure that Carter goes through this journey of grief and that we find a complete journey, right? Like, we find pain, but we also find resolution. We find the breath after the pain.
Yeah. Wow, man. Gosh, but I got me weeping in tears over here just doing the description here. One thing I know that has always stuck out looking at the programming for dCenter this year, there is, my understanding is there's quite a bit of like the queerness to the story in terms of like both behind the camera and on the screen. How did you approach incorporating queerness into the story? Was it like a natural thing? Was it an intentional choice? Like, how did you decide to make that sort of part of the fabric of the story?
So I feel like growing up, because I'm an elder millennial, like I'm ancient. And growing up, like, I did not have the kind of opportunity for content that people have now. And so a lot of the stories that we were given or that we were provided the opportunity to consume in 2005 showed queerness in a way that was like really negative. You saw queer characters being killed on screen. You saw queer characters like being you see the typical coming out story constantly. And it's just like, it's so overwhelmingly negative that you, as like me, as a young queer kid in West Texas at 16 is like, well, great. Like, I'm totally effed. Like, my life is going to suck. And so like moving forward, like, I've never really focused on the queerness aspect of it. I've just written some characters who happen to be queer, and it just so happens that Carter fell in love with her best friend. And it's never discussed. It's never an issue in the story. And that is something that I think is really important. And it's something that I really want audiences to take away from it, is that like, you see Carter and you see Carter hurt and you see Carter fall in love. And it's the same pain that you feel. Like, if you're straight, if you're gay, if you're queer, like, everyone feels feelings. And I think that is what is important about this story, is that like, we've made a story for everyone, but it features queer characters living life like they do every single day, like, I'm queer, but like, I have a wife and like our life is really normal and boring. Like we watch a lot of Netflix, you know, like we're just like everyone else. And I think that like this sort of showcases that as well. Like, you know, we have a story about characters that are just living.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. Why do you think it's important?
I mean, I think it's important to see yourself, right? To feel seen. And I think that a story that covers grief the way that Hailey's Game does makes everyone feel seen. You know, it's not just the queer person that comes to see the film, right, that feels seen. It's the person, you know, sitting next to them that lost their friend in high school, or it's the person sitting next to them who lost their grandparents recently. Like, grief is a universal emotion. It brings us all together. And I think that is why this film is important, is because we are literally all being brought together. So there's representation everywhere in the film, in every corner that you can look at.
The being seenness, is this sort of value I'm hearing from you in a couple of different ways? Is this a value you shared with the cast and the crew who were working with you on telling this story?
Yeah, I think so. Like, those early discussions that we had with Hailey's Game and, you know, like those early workshops, like I think the cast really understood that, like, it was really important to me that their characters be important to them. And we rarely, like, we intentionally cast these people to make sure that we wanted them to make sure that, like, the character lived, right? Like, we want the character to be alive. Like, we want the character to be important for them. And I think all of them took that. And especially David Grayson. I think David Grayson took Billy's character. And I mean, like, I know you haven't seen the film, but I know that it's going to be a highlight for you because David knocked it out of the park. Like, the way that he spoke to me about Billy, the way that he created that character and made it his own, it's just so special to see the cast do that. And the crew understood it too. Like, I mean, we were blessed with the best crew I've ever had in my entire life. Like, they came in, and with Drew understanding, like, the visual journey of Hailey's Game and taking that to such an emotional place with the camera, I mean, I owe them all everything. They all worked for less than they did. Like, they're all, so that entire crew, like, cut their rate to work for us.
Wow.
You know, and to have people believe in you that much, it's astonishing. It doesn't even feel real still to this day. I look at we just came from testing the film, and every time I see the first frame of the film, like, I just want to cry because I can't believe we made it. I can't believe they made it for us.
That's incredible. And I think it's just a testament to how much they believe in you and how much they believe the importance of the story that you're telling and putting out there for audiences. I imagine telling a feature film is a lot different than a web series once you commit to the difference. So did you have to go back and, like, retool the scripts for that structurally? Like, what was that shift in process going from web series to feature?
It was definitely, I definitely, like, took the script apart and then put it back together. So there were elements of that first script that just didn't fit as far as, like, being a feature film. It didn't flow quite correctly, and having Michael as a resource when I'm writing is it's invaluable. Like, he is my sounding board. Like, he keeps me sane. He makes sure that, like, I don't have imposter syndrome, because, like, as I'm writing, I'll be like, I'm terrible. This is awful. This is the worst thing I've ever written. He's like, no, it's not. You just need to reframe it and look at it this way. And so when I started to retool that script, like, he was a very big part of making sure that, like, I was doing it right. Like, he provided a lot of encouragement.
Well, Michael, I have it on good authority from you that this is quite good. So
yes,
maybe
on good authority.
But no, tell me a little bit more about whenever you were, you know, sitting down doing a table read. Where, you know, at what point were you like, yeah, we need to shift gears, and here's how we should approach that?
Okay, so I'm not a writer, like, through and through, not a writer. I'm good at English. I can tell a good story.
That's how we met.
Yeah, that's the reason I said that. TLDR, I met in college in was it
was a lit class?
junior senior level lit class?
Yeah,
it was
a senior level class, and he was a freshman.
All right, so, very nice.
And so, like, I just happen in weird places all the time. Don't worry about that. And so I just take things and look at them as a story perspective. I can't write dialogue to save my life. I can make plot points, but I can never connect them. And so having Katie do all the hard work, like the tried and true, like generating the story, really set the stage for things. And then she would pitch an idea to me, and it'd be like, okay, with what you've told me before, this is how I would approach the next step, or this is how I would kind of tweak this so that it flows more naturally into the next thing. And so I tell people all the time, I didn't write a single word of dialogue in this entire film. I was the backboard, and it's got my fingerprints all over it.
George Lucas, for example, widely criticized for being for not necessarily being a good dialogue writer, but has really great story ideas. So I mean, there is something to that, yin and yang. You're like, I've got some good ideas for like story, but like Katie's like, well, yeah, but do you know how to actually make it a story?
Well, there's a reason why I haven't written anything, and it's because I know I'm bad. And sooner or later that'll change. I'll put time and effort into it, and we'll see what comes out of it. But currently, it's just a matter of I'm gonna give you my idea, and hopefully it's a good one. But as with every piece of advice I've ever given is, this is my take. If you like it, take it and run with it. But if you don't like it, or it doesn't fit, or doesn't feel right, then absolutely 100% say no to it.
He doesn't take it personally either. Like, there are moments, like, I didn't take everything, that every idea that Michael has ever given me. Like, obviously, like, we're very close. We're like siblings. We also live together. So, when he gives me those suggestions, like, there are moments where I'm so attached to like my story ideas that I'm like, no, absolutely not. And then I have to like sit for hours and digest what he said and think about it. And mostly, like, for the most part, I would say like Michael is a 95% rate of being right, which is so annoying.
I try not to rub it in. But remember, on good authority, it's a good film.
I'd heard from a very reliable source.
95% batting average. You heard it here first, folks.
This is I just think the credibility there went from reliable to 95%. But no, seriously, Michael, I think just hearing you guys talk about it, sounds like you guys have a really healthy collaborators, because collaborators are going to like actually provide valuable feedback. And then, Katie, I think that's why it sounds like this film has turned out so well, is because you were able to take that collaboration, that feedback from great collaborators.
Yeah. And it was funny because as it sort of started to evolve, it evolved very quickly. Like, it was a moment of like, well, we think this might be a feature. Let's shoot it that way, but like, let's still shoot it with our friends. And then it was like, well, this is actually like pretty good. I remember there was a moment after the table read that he looked at me and he was like, Katie, you're not a bad writer. You never have been, but this is the best thing you've ever written. And it hit me really hard, because like Michael doesn't talk like that. We don't really like gas each other up in that way. And so like I've taken that, and it's like the one moment that I felt really, really validated, and like we were doing something right, and like we were moving in the right direction. And so we had a camera operator already attached, because we're really great friends with April Chomp, and like she's amazing. She's the best person in the world. And April told me, she was like, we should get Drew on this. And I was like, well, I don't really know Drew. If you could connect us, like, I'd be happy to like see if he would want to do it. Like, I'll bring him the script and we'll talk about it. And the first meeting that I had with Drew, I was like, oh, this is going to be so much more than we thought it was going to be, because he's such an artist and he's so talented.
Well, tell me, I want to go a little further on that, because from what I'm hearing, one of the really great things about this is the exciting collaboration across cast and crew. So yeah, tell me a little more about getting all these folks on board. And it sounds like these people were the ones who were like, well, this is too good for just a web series. We need to take it up to the feature.
I do think that there were a lot of people that kind of shared that opinion. And like the way that I work is, I like you said, like there's a lot of collaboration that goes on when we're creating these stories and when we're creating these projects. And like for me as a director and as a writer, like something that I really love to do is explore the characters with my cast prior. And so like a lot of times, we're meeting months before we even go into production, and we're talking about character direction, we're talking about ideas, and we're talking about backstory. And as we were sort of doing all of that, like it just became this moment of, oh wow, like everybody is on board for this. And like as we sort of elevated the production, and as we got like a little bit bigger, and as we started taking it a little bit more seriously, like everybody that we had attached, like they came on board. And it was so funny because Hailey was the last character that we ended up casting. And it happened about like a month and a half before
I couldn't tell you the time frame, but it was close.
Okay, so those are the last actors on board is the star.
Yeah, like the last actor that we like brought in was Abby's co-star, and it was like Hailey was so important, and there was such a weight to the character, and we saw so many people come in and read for it, and we ended up Kaylee Adams, the person that plays Hailey, she was ill when she was supposed to come in initially, and so she was like, "But I'll read on a Zoom if you'd like," and I was like, "Man, I don't know about Zoom, you know. Yeah. I don't know if we can get a chemistry test through that." And we had Abby, who was in my office, and then we were in Michael's room, and then Kaylee was at home, and we did this Zoom. And I remember looking at Michael thinking, oh shit, like we have something so special here, because Kaylee just brought this energy into the room, not even being there. And so it hinged, like the whole like production hinged on them being able to like find this connection and find this chemistry. And they found it over a Zoom within the first 2 minutes of reading. And we were like, well, I guess we're done now.
I mean, if you can prove that connection on a Zoom, I mean, just imagine that in-person collaboration had to have been really powerful.
It was really, really magical. I mean, we had, we can talk about it later, but we ended up having a little bit of a hiccup in production where our entire camera crew caught COVID.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we had to shut down for a weekend because everyone was sick. Nobody could work. And we were shooting on the weekends instead of like in the weekdays because I still had a full-time job. And so we lost a weekend and we lost 24 hours of filming. And so we had to take that 24 hours and spread it out. And instead of doing that over the other weekends that we were planning on, we did it during the week in between. And we ended up just lifting all of Abby and Kaylee's scenes together. So they got like this really intensive, close contact, like almost summer camp feel where like it was just the crew and it was just them and it was just me and it was just Michael, and we were showing up like every night, like grabbing like 2 or 3 scenes. And it was really intimate and really wonderful. And they were able to build like this incredible chemistry that I'm not sure we would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, again, it's the challenges is kind of what makes it a stronger collaboration, right? Because you're all working together to overcome all these unexpected hiccups, which is one of the beautiful things about filmmaking, right? Michael, on the production side, number one, what was the most exciting challenge trying to actually execute the story? And 2, what was maybe the most difficult one to solve?
All right, well, I'm going to go with the difficult one because obviously it was making up that weekend. And so we had to do it over 5 days. And I was working, like I still have my same job. And so I was working, and it's not a 9 to 5. It's a 7 a.m. till my route gets finished. And so there'd be days where they'd start shooting at 5 and I'd roll on the set like 6:30. I'd already worked 11 and a half hours, roll up on set, check with everyone. What are we doing? What are we working on? What do you guys need? And then changing shirts, so I'm not my my work uniform, and then going out and getting whatever needed to have been done, whatever needed to be taken care of for the next scene, whatever we need to get lined up for everything else. And it was just that because our cast and crew was so small and so tight knit, it was one of those, I was working from literally before the sun rose till past the sun went down. And then because we were renting out our location, I'd fall asleep while they were shooting the last scene so that I had enough energy to do the same thing again the next day. And it was just one of those, I know that some of the best scenes we have were shot during that week, but I can't remember anything we shot that week. Like I just wasn't, like I was there, but I currently cannot remember any of that time. And then as for things that were like exciting, it has, and likely, we'll just go with, it was my first time really being able to sit back and watch things progress. I'm a real hands-on guy, like always show up. What do you need? What needs getting taken care of? And how can we knock that stuff out? And by that nature, I'm always on the sidelines when action starts getting called. And so this time I got to step in as a producer. It was like, no, don't touch things. Let everyone else touch stuff. And like it took me a while to figure that one out. Like that was a lesson I had to learn and had to figure out and master myself, because there was a moment where I was just like, man, I don't know what to do with myself, and it's affecting me. And so I had to sit down, recollect my thoughts, and retrain myself. But then just being able to sit down behind the monitor and seeing how all of this stuff fit together and played out, and to see it before it really gets processed, before it gets edited, before anyone else has an opportunity to change my filter or my lens on it, and just seeing it with my own eyes was just, for me personally, just the thing that sets this project from anything else I've ever done before.
Oh, super cool. So you're saying like the most exciting thing is almost that you had to learn how to step back and let the talent just be badass at what they do, right?
Well, not just the talent, but the crew. Like,
yeah.
I mean, we brought these guys in. We trusted them. They did fantastic work. But so I grew up and I'm the youngest son. Like, and so it was always like, if something's going on at the house, I get to move pieces. I had 2 older brothers, and we're all Eagle Scouts, which meant I got to do 3 Eagle Scout projects, not just one. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. And so I went into this, and it was like, time for me to do something. For me to set a light. Time for me to move something.
And then just for like clarification, all of our projects before this, Michael and I wore multiple hats. And I mean, like, so our first web series, like, Michael learned how to boom like 15 minutes before we shot the first shot, you know? And so he was running sound, and he was also gripping. And then for our first feature, like, he was in charge of sound, and he also gaffed the entire thing. And so like, he's so used to walking on set and like seeing that a light needs to be moved and moving it, and just like doing that, and not asking people like, oh, hey, like, let me get that for you. Like, let me do this for you. And so for Michael to come in and have like this role where like he had to step back and really be a producer and only have to worry about like what was going on for the end product, it was really cool to watch him grow and to change, because like he said, like, he had a moment. I remember there was like a very specific day on set where he said, I was like, hey, are you good? Like, your vibe feels like a little bit off. And he's like, I just don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And I was like, well, you're supposed to be behind the monitor with me, you know? Like, and he's like, he's a valuable resource when I'm writing. He's a valuable resource behind the monitor with me, because he's the guy that's saying, okay, well, we got this and we got this, but what if we got this? What if we got something else? And so seeing him grow into that role was really, really cool.
That's exciting. I mean, it just shows that the opportunity here is to kind of go from like, yeah, you wear like 10 hats to being able to like really focus and specialize. And for you guys on the creative and production side, really the bigger picture. What advice would you offer? And this is for both of you, but I'll start with you, Katie. What advice would you offer other first-time filmmakers, knowing what you know now about a director who has just completed the first feature?
I would say find yourself a crew that you can trust and that you can listen to and that you can collaborate with. Because I feel like there was never one moment where they allowed me to think that like my work was perfect. They were like always improving everything that we did. So like we would come to the table and we would improve on the idea that we had just had. And that is directly related to how collaborative like this cast and crew was. And I think that made my first film experience incredible. I mean, I feel like that's why the film is good. I feel like that's why it feels so cohesive, is that every single person came in and they said, I have something to bring to this. And I don't know if I ever want to make another film another way, you know?
Yeah, surrounding yourself with excellent and talented collaborators. I love to hear that one. Michael?
So because I'm the executive producer, it's going to be expected that I bring this one along. It's because things are going to go wrong and things are going to go right. And either way, that's going to change everything. You're going to go in, because I went in 100% expecting this to be hey, we're just going to make another movie. To, okay, now I've got to spend a whole lot of money to get everyone paid. And for me, like, that's me, is I want to pay people. Like, if I can pay for nothing else, I want to pay people what they're worth, right? And so you got to pay the people what they're worth, and then it's one of those things will change, and it's going to be like, oh, by the way, we could do this, and is that worth your time? And the answer should always be yes. Sometimes it will feel like things will either grow or shrink very rapidly. And the more you try and control that, the more you put your hands on the levers, the worse your product's going to be. And so understand that when you walk into it and things start rolling, the ball starts rolling, it will develop a life of its own. And all you can do is give it some guidelines. Is be like, let's hope it doesn't go too far this way. And let's hope it doesn't do this wrong over here. But for the most part, it's take a step back, breathe, and let it do what it's going to do. And be prepared for it to do things you don't expect.
I love to hear that. That is a producer at heart right there. I love that. Always expect the unexpected, be ready to pivot, and be as prepared as possible. That's good advice.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those, I mean, again, I'm not going to get into the specifics about the budgets, but it's just like I went in expecting $1 figure, and it ended up multiplying by a factor of about 7.
Oh, wow.
And now understand, that number is magnified so much because of how little my initial budget was.
It was quite small.
Yeah, and it's one of those like, oh, my initial budget was $1,000 and it explodes by 7. Now it's only 7,000. It's like from 1 to 7 is a big jump, but understand that's a much smaller jump than 10 to 70. Like,
yeah. And I was just gonna say, like, we ended up, because the strike started happening about the time that we went into production, and we wanted to stay compliant, like, and we also wanted to support what was going on behind the scenes, and so we signed the micro SAG agreement. So our budget for this film was $20,000.
Oh, wow.
And like that's max top out, like, production budget was $20,000. And I feel like and just so you know, this guy sitting right next to me brought that in.
Wow.
That was financed by him.
Kudos, guys.
Don't put your money under your mattress. Put it places where you, I mean, like, and honestly, and this is one of the deals, is like, if you love doing something, you got to put time and effort into it. And I hoard money like a squirrel collects nuts for winter. Like, I'm not going to use all of this, but it's all going to stay over here until I think I need it. And
That's a little nutty.
I am nutty. Leave me alone. But it's just one of those. I was put in a position where I was financially able to do it, and I mean, I had also had the benefit of having read the script before and being there when it was formed and seeing not just how good everything was, but how everyone believed in what it was. Because if it was one of those, if it was one, I would have put $1 figure. If it was only the other, I'd put another dollar figure. But it was both of these things. And so I was blessed with a abundance of information and just seeing how all of it fit together. And so I mean, yeah, sure, I took a risk, I took a gamble, but for me, even if this movie doesn't sell, even if this movie doesn't make $1, I'm more than happy to have put that money into this project because of how well it's turned out.
Credits roll. Round of applause. People have seen the movie. What do you hope they take away after they see Hailey's game? Katie?
I think I just want them to feel something, even if they don't like it. Like, I just want them to feel something about it. I want someone to sit in that theater and, as the credits roll, think, or like, man, it sucked. Like, I just want them to feel something. I don't want them to feel apathy. Like, I want them to leave and I want them to talk about it with other people. I want people to review it. I want to hear what they really think about it. I think that's what I want them to take away from it.
Awesome. To feel a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Power of storytelling in film. Michael?
I have a much worse answer.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Turn the mic off. Turn the mic off.
No, I for all of this talking about like being passion project and being invested, I'm the most invested because it's financial investment, but like with that put aside, I'm also the least invested. Like, I saw this, I helped, I did all this other fun stuff, but nowhere other than under executive producer would I put my name on this project. Absolutely 100% of this project is built off the backs of Katie's writing, her direction, our cast and crew, all of them. Every single one of them deserve all the praise for making this what it is. And so with that in mind, what I want people to take away from this is just what everyone put into it. Like I want them to go, man, that shot looked fantastic. Or this person's acting blew me the way. Or someone to go, man, the writing in this makes it feel like I know everyone in this cast. Like maybe not personally, but like I know a Billy. Like I'm not friends with him because Billy's weird, but I know someone who Billy is. Right? Like I want everyone to be able to go, there's something to take away from this film. And it's because everyone who put in work into this brought their A game, and it's phenomenal.
To just piggyback off of what Michael just said, I really agree. Like, I firmly and strongly agree with him, and I want people to see this and see how fucking talented Oklahoma filmmakers are. Because, like, this film would not be what it was without our entire crew and our entire cast bringing their A game, because they did. And it's like, I think a lot of times people discount local filmmakers, right? Oh, well, it's just an Oklahoma film. Man, fuck that. Like, we have so many talented people in this region, and they have so much to give to the film community. I can't wait to see what other filmmakers are making. Like, that is I'm excited about dCFF24 for that. Like, I can't wait to see, like, the Okie shorts, and I can't wait to see the other Oklahoma films. Because I think that, like, as a community, we're knocking it out of the park, and I'm not sure that people are actually seeing that yet. And they should.
Absolutely, they should. They should go see your movie. They should go see the Oklahoma produced films that are all on the docket on the schedule. And one of the things we're asking all of our guests this year, just because film going experience is magical. You talk about the power of a story and how it can make you feel things. So I have to ask you the question, putting you on the spot a little bit. What is your favorite film going memory, or maybe your favorite film going experience that you can recall?
I am a product of film parents. So my parents met working at an old United Artists movie theater in the 70s. They met at a midnight screening of Alien.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so they grew up on film. They raised me on film. So like every weekend was spent like going to see a new movie. And there's a very specific moment that I remember. I think I was 7 years old. I may have been 6 or 7. They took me to go see Jurassic Park. Terrifying. And I was very freaked out by these very realistic dinosaurs. And I remember my mom gathered me into her lap and she was like, "It can't hurt you if you're eating popcorn." And so like, for me, part of the movie going experience is just the entire experience of it all. And I think like as we've sort of evolved as a culture and like we've created technology that is so distracting, like to be able to go to the movies and to have that experience and like that popcorn experience and like sitting there, like I always think about that moment and I'm like, nothing can hurt me if I have popcorn. So
that's great mom advice. If you're afraid, just grab some popcorn. Exactly. It's all fine. Oh man, that's cool. Michael?
Again, I have a much worse answer. No, I grew up. So I grew up in the country. Like you could not see my nearest neighbor from my house. That's how far away they lived.
Oh, actually, the first time Michael took me to his house, I thought he was going to kill me out in the middle of the cornfield. I was like, "Wow, you were not kidding. This is out in the middle of nowhere."
Yeah, no, it's surrounded by so fields, so corn, cotton, and maize were the big three in my surrounding area, and so like. I knew about the movie Children of the Corn, but I was not allowed to watch it because I lived in a region one could associate with that movie. But no, I grew up in the country, and so like during the summer, like both my parents worked, and so I watched movies to pass time. And so a lot of my favorite movies are my favorite movies because of how long they are. Like A Bridge Too Far and The Great Escape are up on that list, not because they are great movies, which they are, but because they would just soak up a morning, or one would soak up the afternoon. And so for me, like I never really got into going out and watching movies. For me, that was always that was a nicety every once in a while. Like, hey, let's go watch a movie. And it's like, all right, cool. So with that in mind, that's why this moment may not seem like the best one, but for me it is the first movie I ever watched with Katie.
Oh my God, I was just thinking, I was like, oh no, please don't talk about this.
Reveal all the secrets right here.
Well, so we went to go watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie, which by this point, his stereotypical twist had already been established. And
So this is M. Night after the like people have figured out M. Night. So you're
Yes.
like, okay, we've already seen the cliches.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so we both go in knowing full well that there's going to be a twist involved. And so we go watch Devil, the movie where they're stuck in an elevator.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, before they even established like the rest of the movie where they're in the elevator, Katie turns and looks at me and goes, "It's the old lady." And when she told me, I was not even convinced that the old lady was going to make it in the movie. Like I thought that was just like a passing shot of someone else. Like I was still waiting to see who the main character was or who the main ensemble was. And Katie just, it's the old lady. And I'm like, no, it's not. She's not even going to be in like the rest of the movie. Don't worry about it.
It's Katie knows movies, it sounds like.
I might. I mean, I feel like it was definitely a gut feeling though. Like I saw her and I was like, ooh, I don't like her. Like I don't trust her.
Not good vibes.
Bad vibes.
But it's one of those like, I'll pro offer a second thing because it's my favorite thing to do is ruin movies for people. Like if you take me to watch a movie,
Making notes.
I will sit next to you and I will ruin it. But Katie's wife hates scary movies, and so we went to go watch. It was the remake of Flatliners.
Yep, it was.
Oh.
And her wife just starts getting scared. I was like, just swap suites with me. And so I go sit next to her, and the entire time I'm just sitting there, just making not like rude or crass remarks, but just about the movie and about the plot line, because it's a modern horror movie and it's full of like these weird idiosyncrasies. And I'm just sitting there just making fun of the movie. And by the end of it, she's laughing. And she's like, "Oh man, this was worth going to. Like, this was worth watching." And it was all because I took something that was outside her comfort realm and just shifted her perspective. And it's like, no, sometimes you can just watch a movie, not for what it is, not for what they want it to be, but you can make a movie your own by your own perception.
I love to hear that because again, it speaks to what makes movies such a great experience. It's just as much about what you're bringing to the table than the film itself.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, Katie, Michael, this has been so much fun chatting with you today. Congratulations again on Hailey's Game playing in the festival.
Thank you very much.
Where can people follow both your work, but also the future of Hailey's Game online if they want to keep up with more news?
So if you want to keep up with Hailey's Game, you want to keep up with the news, you can follow Hailey's Game on Instagram at Hailey's Game Film. Or if you want, you can follow the Goddard House Film. That's our Goddard House Films, pardon me, is our like sort of our production house Instagram, and you can see like the things that we've done in the past. You can see what's going on with Hailey's Game. You can see what's coming up. So,
well, listeners, make sure to keep up with it. And also, if you are attending DeadCenter this weekend, the movie is playing on Thursday, June 6th at 5 p.m. at the Harkins Bricktown Auditorium 11. That is, as we discussed beforehand, the first film at the festival.
It is the first film, and if you come out and you hang out with us, we might have a special gift for the first 20 people that show up.
What? Okay, so set up a tent now is
It's
what I
so
just heard.
secret. I don't even know what it is.
And if you're not one of the privileged few to make it into the first screening, there is an encore screening of Hailey's Game scheduled for Sunday, June 9th at 3:30 p.m. at Radio Cinema, the one specifically on Film Row. So if for some reason you can't make it to the first one, you have a second chance at the end of the festival, 3:30 p.m. Sunday, Radio Cinema on Film Row. All right, listeners. Well, for all other things DeadCenter, you can head on over to deadcenterfilm.org, and I hope you'll consider supporting the festival by purchasing a badge or individual ticket for the more than 160 films. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you again next time.